A pesticide is a substance or mixture of substances of chemical or biological ingredients intended for repelling, destroying, or controlling any pest or regulating plant growth. Today in Uganda, there is increased use of synthetic pesticides both in agriculture and public health to control pests, vectors, and disease pathogens. Indeed, official statistics from the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations show that the total value of pesticides imported in Uganda increased by about 20 times between 1990 and 2017, from about $3.3 million to $66.9 million. By their nature, pesticides are manufactured to cause harm both in the short and long term. Indeed, the short-term hazard level of a pesticide is always indicated on the label using color codes. Red, extremely and highly hazardous. Yellow, moderately hazardous. Blue, slightly hazardous. And green, mildly hazardous. Therefore, in case of exposure, there is always a risk of negative short and long-term human and environmental health effects. Short-term health effects include, among others, headaches, dizziness, blurred vision, paralysis, vomiting, coughing, breathing difficulty, burning nose, stiffness, and general body weakness. This is mostly as a result of exposure within 48 hours. It is intense and brief. Long-term health effects include, among others, reproductive health problems, impairment of the nervous system, disruption of the endocrine system, occupational cancers, and immunity system disorders. This is associated with low-dose long-term exposure. The most vulnerable to exposure and these effects are persons with low or compromised immunity, such as children, the elderly, and women, especially in childbearing age, pregnant, and breastfeeding. Exposure can be both direct, for example, suicide, homicide, during selling, transporting, storage, mixing and application of pesticides, and indirect through contaminated food, water, and air. Indeed, research studies undertaken by Uganda National Association of Community and Occupational Health (UNACO) has revealed high levels of mancozeb contamination in tomato samples picked from farms and markets in 18 districts across Uganda. Contamination of 86 domestic water sources in 17 districts with up to 25 different pesticides, with glyphosate and diclovos in notably high concentration levels. Low risk levels among tomato consumers engaged in 4 districts of Uganda. Relatively high incidences of acute organophosphate poisoning reported in Uganda's local health facilities. So the question is, as a country, how can we minimize exposure in the course of using these pesticides? To farmers, stop over-relying on synthetic pesticides as the first and only pest and disease management. Always monitor your crops and use integrated pest management, where pesticide use is combined with cultural, ecological, physical, mechanical, biological, and host plant resistance practices. And whenever you use pesticides, observe the following safety precautions. When buying, ensure to buy less toxic pesticides. Avoid those with red color code in their original containers, only from reputable and licensed agro dealers. Read the label or have it read to you so that you can understand the safe handling instructions. Ensure to alternate pesticides with different modes of action to avoid buildup of pesticides resistance. During storage, avoid storing pesticides in the same house where people sleep. Keep them in their original containers under lock and key, especially away from children. During mixing and application, ensure your knapsack sprayer has no leakage. Endeavor to follow manufacturers' recommended mixing rates. Correctly wear appropriate personal protective clothing to safeguard the eyes, nose, mouth, and skin. Spray in the morning and evening hours when it's a bit more comfortable to wear PPEs. Avoid spraying near water sources. Always leave a buffer zone. Always bathe, wash your spray clothes and equipment away from community water sources and separate from domestic household items. Sprayed crops shouldn't be harvested until the label-recommended pre-harvest interval elapses. Avoid working in or touching recently sprayed crops. Do not leave empty containers in the garden or reuse them for domestic home use. Triple rinse, puncture and keep them in a designated pit for further safe and environmentally friendly disposing of. To the general public, avoid entering or grazing animals in a recently sprayed area. Stop buying fruits and vegetables with visible pesticide stains. Always properly wash your fruits and vegetables with warm water or other recommended washing substance before preparing and eating them. Peel off the outer skin where applicable. Make an effort to establish a kitchen garden at your home to guarantee safety of your food, especially for fruits and vegetables. Protect your children and other vulnerable groups from coming close to areas where pesticides are being or have been used. Look out for and take collective action against a community member found polluting the environment with pesticides. Join relevant fora and contribute towards the demand for safety of our country's food.
And finally, we recommend the government of Uganda to protect public and environmental health by putting in place practical measures to ensure comprehensive sound management of pesticide life cycle in Uganda, especially mandated institutions such as Ministry of Health, Ministry of Agriculture, Animal Industry and Fisheries, Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development, National Drug Authority and NEMA. Promote self-protection among pesticide users through persuasive policy measures, countrywide information campaigns and awareness raising. Strengthen regulation of pesticide retail trade across the country through delegating, empowering and vivid supervision of relevant local government departments. Protect consumers from exposure to pesticide residues by establishing a strong food safety surveillance mechanism. Protect the environment, especially water quality, by putting in place practical and sustainable mechanisms of collecting and responsibly disposing of empty pesticide containers. Protect the country's agricultural export trade interests by supporting and guiding farmers on good agricultural practices and subsidize pesticide residue testing services to adhere to recommended maximum residue limits.
This information is brought to you by Uganda National Association of Community and Occupational Health in collaboration with Dialogos with support from Civil Society in Development.